Liminal spaces are a genre that I feel like recently has just blown up, especially with the mainstream popularity of films like Kane Parsons' The Backrooms. But I feel like I have known a lot about the genre itself just because I feel like people have been exploring these kind of ideas and these certain feelings of being in these spaces on places where they make like YouTube short films, as well as like there's tons of photos. I feel like there was a whole trend online, like I would say a couple years ago, of people just exploring these sorts of spaces. The genre itself derives fear from emptiness and utilizes spaces that are usually transitional and temporary spaces used by people. Yet each of these images spark this feeling of familiarity. They feel uncanny when they lack people and activity. These works are always just so eerie yet dreamlike. I mean, when you really look at it, these stories are nothing new with their plot structures and kind of allude to old theological stories about purgatory, the transitional threshold between earthly life and the afterlife. I mean, something kind of similar to what is depicted in Dante's The Divine Comedy. I have walked into a lot of bookstores. I saw a little yellow book and the name sounded familiar. That week it had been translated into English and I recognized it from a film that had come out earlier this year and was rated very, very well. It is based off of a cult classic horror video game sharing the same name as this game. When I read the back and found out that the purgatory space was meant to resemble an endless subway, I was hooked. And that little yellow book is called Exit 8. So I'm here in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and I'm going to be flying back to Los Angeles through the Chicago airport tomorrow. And back when I was in Boston about a week ago, I picked up a little book called Exit Number 8.
I was feeling a little bit impulsive, so I just bought a book. Short though. I'm trying to learn how to write better short stories, so hopefully this will help.
It is actually based on a film, as well as the film being inspired by a game. And this is a very, very short little book. It's only like, I think just over 100 pages. So I'm actually excited. I think I'm gonna try and burn through this little book while I'm on my flight tomorrow. The flight's like 5 hours, so I should have plenty of time.
Back in LA, East Churchill. That was a long flight, but finished exit number 8, and I have to say, wow, it was very, very good. You'll definitely have to check out the games and / or the film.
I don't know what I expected from Exit Number 8, but it was definitely not that, because I'm not gonna lie, this book was incredible and it leaves you questioning everything. As the book unfolds, it leaves you all of these clues that allow you to kind of come to this self-driven interpretation of all the events that happen during the text. The story itself is quite simplistic, and if you've ever played the game, you'd probably pick up on all of the simplicity of the mechanics of the world that our character is in, along with the fact that the prose themselves are quite simplistic. This may be a side effect of it being a translation, but honestly for me, the prose being simple kind of adds to this feeling of claustrophobia as you're stuck, kind of mimicking the way that it feels to be this character that's in this ever-looping train station. The story itself is about a man who is stuck in this ever-looping tunnel within the Tokyo subway. And like I said earlier, if you're aware of the games, the mechanics are quite simple. The tunnel keeps looping over and over and over again, and if you see an anomaly in this tunnel, you need to turn around and go back. But if there is an anomaly, you need to go forward and go through. The number itself will either go up if you're right or completely reset to 0 whenever you are wrong. And this loop keeps recycling over and over and over again till you reach Exit Number 8. I haven't actually played the game of Exit Number 8, but I've watched a couple minutes of the playthroughs on YouTube of this game, and I was definitely aware of this game prior to reading this book. I think it became quite popular back in like 2023. I remember Markiplier playing it. But from what I can remember, there aren't these same story beats in the game. The novel is kind of its completely own thing, kind of building out the narrative and the world of these characters, honestly adding a lot of depth to the game, I feel like. So I feel like without the story, the simplistic loop doesn't have as deep of an impact. fact. The story itself actually breathes such eeriness into the empty hallways of exit number 8. And that's kind of where I feel like this book flourishes, building this almost deeply emotional story, along with leaving you kind of on a cliffhanger with this kind of thought-provoking ending. At the end of the story, I still kind of can't decide if all of this was real. It's kind of giving him a new chance at that subway, or if he ever even got out of the exit itself. Because I mean, what happened to the guy that got stuck in the purgatory loop and was the salaryman that was walking back and forth was he thought he made it to the exit and went up the exit and then kind of got trapped in the loop again. To my understanding, he gets a redo at not standing up for the mother that had the crying baby at the very beginning of this story. But it kind of leaves it open-ended, and that's kind of what I think works so well for this novel. And I think the writing really stands for itself because it uses the same repetition of describing the room and the differences and how things are the same or not the same, yet it still does this in a way that's interesting and kind of adds to the texture of the story. It doesn't really get boring. It kind of feels like I myself am stuck in this insanity, getting trapped inside the character that is trapped inside of this room, feeling crazy, kind of glossing over the words the way that the character is glossing over all of the posters that are the exact same. I feel like the writing really describes such an interesting altercation to even start off the book, making a picture of such a realistic impression of what it's like to be in a subway, where everyone is just kind of in their own world, scrolling on their phone and not paying attention to all the madness that's happening around them. Because if you paid attention to the madness a lot of the time, being someone who has been on the New York City subway, you can get pulled into some crazy stuff. It really just feels like a naturalistic scene as it describes the randomness of someone scrolling through this, ever-ending random feed, kind of adding to the idea of infinity of Exit 8. I mean, there's so much symbolism from this story on the onset, showcasing a single mother fighting off a guy who's complaining about a crying baby, as our unnamed character gets a text from his girlfriend telling him that she is pregnant and what she should do right before he gets off the subway and then gets stuck in this loop. Describing his ex-girlfriend as being a single mother because they're not actually together, and then looking at this woman who's a single mother who is actively struggling. I mean, there's even the scene where he's looking back at the past version of himself in the subway and being angry at himself for not acting and helping out this woman. And I feel like every single anomaly in this story has some sort of symbolic significance. I mean, there's the subtext of fatherhood and our lead character not being ready to be a father. And I feel like this whole place itself is internalizing how he is not ready to be a father and all the implications of having a child and bringing a child into this world. It's him trying to figure out and kind of become one with the fact that maybe he could be ready. And when he starts to feel like he can be ready to have a kid, that's what eventually lets him out of this ever-ending loop. The tunnel itself is kind of like a manifestation of all of his anxieties, of making such a life-altering decision. I mean, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but I feel like the repetition of this ever-ending subway is kind of just a symbol for the repetition of everyday life, how you can get stuck in a world where you're just going in the same place every single day. And this kind of is a description of that salaryman, walking that same path, how doing something out of the ordinary and having this kid kind of pulls our unnamed character out of this just ever-ending loop of a subway. He ends up breaking routine in both deciding to have a kid with his ex while also breaking routine and helping this woman with this screaming child, connecting back to the very beginning of the story when he witnesses all of these events. I mean, symbolism goes even deeper. I mean, the idea of blood and it corresponding with babies, along with the babies all being in lockers, screaming. I mean, that has to mean something. Yet also on top of this, the book ends on such ambiguity on whether everything that happened was even real. I mean, the thing that in my mind points to this all being a real experience is it has three separate different perspectives. I mean, you have the salaryman, you have the boy, and then you have our unnamed character. All these three perspectives are kind of a shared experience of this event. I guess this could still all just be in his head because it kind of points to the fact that the boy could be like a time traveler who is like his son from the future getting lost from the mother, because he has that whole like flashback scene, almost that kind of like enlightened looking at the future of him on the beach watching his son playing, which the son in that like dream was actually the boy that was with him in that moment, having that kind of last moment where he was like, oh, I'll see you again someday kind of a thing after he gets washed away by the huge tsunami. Was the boy in the tunnel like a way for the world to tell him that everything is going to be all right? Because the reason why he broke up with his ex to begin with was because of his fear of starting a family, because they had been together for quite a while through college and even had been friends when they were younger before college. They were even in a band together. That's pretty wild. Just to me, it is just incredible that this 125-page book had such an impact on me and can be packed with such questions that I finished the book and I'm still thinking about it and its emotional story. What's even more wild is the fact that this book was written by the guy who wrote and directed the film as well, which is something that like nearly never happens. Yet Kawamura was kind of the perfect guy for this because he had experience in writing stories and short stories before even writing this book. He was like the perfect blend between filmmaker and writer. This might be a little bit silly, but I'm wondering, because they brought up earlier in the book, there was a poster that had an 8 and an infinity on it at the same time, kind of having like a continuous line. So I'm wondering why they picked exit 8. Is it because if you look at the number 8 and then turn it sideways, that kind of becomes an infinity and the hallway is infinite? These questions need to be answered. I have to say, this story just ended up really surprising me. I was not expecting any of it to be as thought-provoking and deep as it was. I thought it was just a fun horror story, yet I finished it and was left sitting there for a moment thinking about all the different elements that the story presented. I mean, honestly, you can't ask for more than that, especially the kind of horror story that's great to just read in one sitting. And I have to say, I feel like this book puts video game adaptations onto the map. It is fantastic and showcases what a lot of these adaptations can be.